Greetings, and welcome to this week's in-depth video, where we will be taking a good look at the sneaky thief. I'm your host, Zolfury, and let's just get going. The thief is a master of stealth and surprise that specializes with small weapons, traps, and just generally being a badass. The thief is an adventurer profession, so they wear medium armor, and these guys have all kinds of tricks up their sleeves. The thief has three main unique abilities. The first of those is steal. Steal is an ability with which you can steal an item from your target, which you can then use as an environmental weapon. Just briefly, environmental weapons are weapons that you find around the environment, which replaces your main weapon skill bar with one or two skills that directly relate to that weapon. So for an example, the thief could go up to a moa bird and steal some of its feathers, which it could then use on someone else to blind them. This is a pretty awesome feature, and the best part is it doesn't break stealth. What is this stealth you speak of? Well, the second ability is stealth. This makes the thief nigh on invisible for a limited time. No, this isn't WoW. You cannot just stay stealthed all the time. This has a limited time, which makes it much more of a strategic use. So you're not just, chilling in stealth until you get a good opportunity to strike. You have to specifically use it right when you need it. I actually really like this kind of a tactical feel to the thief. It's really cool. The last of their unique abilities is their initiative system. The thief's weapon skills do not have a cooldown. Instead, they use this initiative system. This system allows the thief to chain attacks a lot more quickly, but they may be unable to act for a short time afterwards. This initiative is basically a constantly regenerating resource bar that when you use skills, it uses up initiative. And you have a limited amount of initiative, though, like I said, it's constantly regenerating. So let's move on to their special skill types. There are three. The first is shadow stepping. This is very much like the assassin's shadow stepping from Guild Wars 1. Shadow stepping allows the thief to get in and out of battle very quickly. Shadow stepping allows them to disappear from one location and instantly reappear at a different location by traveling through the shadows. The next is another trademark of the thief, which is stealth. We already talked about this, but to summarize, this allows the thief to become invisible to enemy players and ignore aggro. You can still be damaged while stealthed, which does temporarily reveal you. And attacking will break stealth, as usual. The last special skill type is traps. A trap is basically a trap that the thief places on the ground, and when enemies step on it, it triggers the trap's effect. More on these in a little bit. Now, let's move on to the actual weapons that they can wield. The only two-handed weapon that they can wield is the short bow. For the main hand, they have the sword, dagger, and pistol. For the offhand, they have the dagger and pistol. I wish they had a little bit more of a variety to their weapons, but, I think it's alright. So now let's actually get into the weapon skills. The thief's skills work a little bit differently than other professions. How it generally works with a profession is the main hand gets the first 3 skill slots, and the offhand gets the last 2. And of course, the two-hander would get all 5. However, with the thief, the main hand gets 2, and the offhand gets 2. And the third skill slot, the middle one, is dependent upon both of the weapons equipped. These are called dual skills. And let's actually talk about them. There are only 6. If you are wielding a dagger in your main hand and a dagger in your offhand, you will get a skill called Leaping Death Blossom in your third slot. With this skill, you cause a small AoE of bleeding on all foes within it. This costs 5 initiative. If you are wielding a sword in your main hand and a dagger in your offhand, you will get a skill called Flanking Strike. With this skill, you slash your target, then you roll behind them to stab at their back. Costs 5 initiative. If you're wielding a pistol in your main hand and a dagger in your offhand, you will get a skill called Shadow Strike. This thing's really cool. You strike at them with your dagger, and then you teleport directly away from them, and you shoot them. Also 5 initiative. Now, if you're wielding a dagger in your main hand and a pistol in your offhand, you'll get a skill called Shadow Shot. This is kind of an inverse of the Shadow Strike skill, where you shoot them, and then you teleport to them to strike them with your dagger. Again, costs 5 initiative. If you are wielding a sword in your main hand and a pistol in your offhand, you get a skill called Pistol Whip, which is a melee attack that dazes your enemy, and then you strike multiple times with your sword. Costs 6 initiative. And lastly, if you have a pistol in your main hand and a pistol in your offhand, you'll get a skill called Unload. As seen in the video here, you blast your target repeatedly with both pistols. Costs 6 initiative. Now at this point you might be wondering, how significant is 5 or 6 initiative? Well, the entire initiative bar has 10 points of initiative. So all of those skills that cost 5, that's half of your initiative bar. Bear that in mind. So let's actually talk about the main weapon skills. Starting with the dagger. For the main hand, we have a skill called Twisting Fang, where you strike your target and you inflict bleeding, vulnerability, and weakness. This one does not cost initiative. And next you have Backstab. With this one, you leap at and strike your foe, and you deal more damage from behind. Costs 3 initiative. For the dagger offhand, we have Dancing Dagger. This is a ranged attack that cripples multiple foes. Costs 4 initiative. And lastly, for the dagger offhand, we have Cloak and Dagger. This stabs your target and then enacts stealth to slip away. 6 initiative. And on a side note, the stealth enacted from this skill only lasts for 3 seconds. Now, for the pistol, we have the main hand skill of Body Shot, which is obviously a ranged attack that makes them vulnerable. And the other pistol main hand is Leg Shot, which cripples your foe. Costs 4 initiative. For the pistol offhand, we have Retreating Shot. This fires a shot at your enemy, and then you evade to a safe distance. Costs 4 initiative. On a side note, evade has no clear definition at this point. Lastly, for the pistol, we have the offhand skill of Head Shot. This dazes your foe and costs 7 initiative. For the sword, we have Crippling Slash, cripples your foe, if that wasn't obvious by the name. And the second skill of Dancing Blade. You leap at your target and strike before evading backwards. Costs 3 initiative. Now the final weapon is the Short Bow. This has all 5 skills, and the first of those is Trick Shot. This is a ranged attack that hits multiple enemies in a chain. Secondly, we have Timed Charge. With this, you light the fuse on a bomb, and then fire that bomb at target location. Costs 3 initiative. Next we have Cluster Bomb, where this fires a large cluster of bombs that explodes at target location. And you can press this skill again to detonate the bombs in midair. That's pretty awesome. This costs 5 initiative. Next up we have Choking Gas. This fires an arrow which poisons enemies in a target area. Costs 5 initiative. And lastly we have Infiltrator's Arrow. This fires an arrow and teleports you to that targeted area. Costs 5 initiative. Now, let's move on to their other skills. As per usual, they break down into 3 general groups: Healing, Utility, and Elite. However, there are no Elite skills announced for the Thief at this time. I know, I was disappointed as well. But for the Healing, we have Withdraw, where you retreat backwards and heal yourself on a 12-second recharge. And we have Signet of Malice. Passively, you gain health by attacking, and actively, you just gain a straight-up amount of health on a 15-second recharge. For the Utility, we have 6 general skills, 1 Signet, and 2 traps. Now, as always, these are just what's been announced at this time. There will most likely be more announced in the future. Currently, for the general skills, we have Apply Poison. This causes you to poison your enemies with your next few attacks, on a 45-second recharge. Next is Caltrops. As seen in the video here, this scatters Caltrops around you to cripple and damage enemies on a 75-second recharge. Next is Hide in the Shadows, which is your basic stealth ability. This puts you into stealth for 30 seconds on a 60-second recharge, so you use it only when you need it. Next is called Roll for Initiative, where you evade behind you to recharge your initiative bar on a 120-second recharge. I can see this thing being pretty awesome with your pistols. use a couple hard-hitting skills which will drain your initiative, use this to gain some distance on your target, and to regenerate your initiative bar, and then hit them again with those couple of hard-hitting skills. Looks pretty awesome to me. Next is Scorpion Wire. With this, you throw out a Scorpion Wire and pull your target to you on a 90-second recharge. Next is Shadow Step. This simply shadow steps you to your target on a 60-second recharge. And lastly, for the general utility skills, we have Blinding Powder. This blinds all enemies within a targeted area on a 60-second recharge. The only Signet skill we have at this point is Assassin's Signet. Passively, you gain Fury, and you activate it to briefly immobilize your enemy on a 90-second recharge. The two traps we currently have announced are Needle Trap, which poisons and immobilizes enemies when it's triggered on a 90-second recharge, and one of the coolest skills that the thief has, which is called Shadow Trap. This thing is so cool. Okay, check this out. When it gets triggered, you are put into stealth and you are shadow stepped to that trap. How cool is that? I mean, really. This has a 120-second recharge. And like I said, no elite skill at this point, so I guess that's just me done for the day. I certainly hope you enjoyed this. This concludes the in-depth profession videos. I know, they just announced the engineer, but at this point there are not very many skills that have been announced for it. So I'll wait a little while until they announce more about it. In 2 weeks, I will be starting up an in-depth look at the different races. These probably will not be as long as these profession videos, but they should give you some kind of an insight into the background of the different races. But until then, I'm Zolfury, and I'll see you around.